Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda. That's my shortest ever.
Hello, David, and welcome to all of our listeners. This is the Feeling Good podcast, episode 382. And today is our conclusion of the personal work that you and Jill Levitt did with Orly. And we ended our last week's session with Orly, showing her vulnerability and crying. And after you guys did the survey technique with her, and that was a really beautiful moment, a beautiful part of that personal work that you guys did. And I think today you're going to do some more methods, including the feared fantasy, and see even more amazing work. And I really want to thank you and Jill for doing this with Orly. It was really a master class for everyone.
Jill is brilliant and a magician of emotions and feelings. And Orly, you've been so beautiful to work with. And all I'll say is that the podcast will turn out to be about two levels of enlightenment when it comes to intimacy and personal relationships. And one level is the discovery that so many of us need to make, and I've had to learn to make it myself, that your greatest source of attractiveness to other people is just yourself, your vulnerability. You're being real, you're exposing the part of yourself that you're usually hiding and putting a false front to the world and hope that someone's going to like you and admire you or something of that nature. And the first level of enlightenment is to learn that when you give up trying to impress people, that you suddenly find that's the thing where you find love and connection and through our vulnerability. But then the second level of enlightenment that will go into pretty great depth in the session today is even higher level. Suppose you're vulnerable and open with people and they rejected you. That's what everyone says. Well, everyone's not going to love you. What if you open up and then people put you down? And so today we'll go into an Alice-in-Wonderland Nightmare World where your worst fear comes true. And then you can ask the question, does that monster really have teeth? And the answer might surprise you. Let's see what happens.
And it's the first time in my life that I was able to take responsibility and becoming closer to myself and really fixing the relationship with my daughter, as well as other people, as well as taking responsibility for the losses that I caused and are not reversible. So I think it's the first time that everything made sense.
Yeah, nice. Can we try a role reversal? Would that be cutting too harshly into this? Were you feeling tearful at one point when you were talking, when Jill was talking to you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wish I can really cry. I really want to.
Yeah. Well, it might just sneak up on you again and start happening again.
All right.
So we were going to do the role reversal. So I'm going to hit you, Orly, with this negative thought again. I'm going to be negative, Orly, and you're going to be positive, self-accepting Orly. So Orly, you're really not likable, and other people see you as too harsh and critical.
Yeah, I have to say that it's true. I alienated a lot of people in my life. I caused situation that rejected me. I even hurt a lot of people. That was not the intention, of course. The intention was to survive, but I definitely did it in a way that did not help. And I lost many years, and I lost many opportunities. But I was given the opportunity to do something about it. And I learned that when I accept that, it actually allows me to be closer to myself. It actually allows me to forgive myself and to have more understanding of others and more sensitivities to not hurt them.
And right now, I, Orly, am feeling.
And I'm feeling very emotional, but very, I feel quiet inside. I feel calm. I don't have to do anything about it.
Isn't that awesome?
Yes.
Now, you asked Jill, but you didn't ask David. David's feeling kind of left out.
David, how do you feel about me?
I judge you. I judge you real bad.
I know.
I feel so close to you, Orly. This is the beautiful Orly. And you're just so warm and open. And I kind of identify with you too, because as you've seen, I can be sometimes a little harsh, and I'm always trying to rein myself in. But even there, or even in group, it kind of sneaks out every now and then. And I remember, I went to Stanford Medical School, and I was such a screw up. I didn't even apply for internships. I cut most of my classes, and then I finally went to Highland Hospital in Oakland to do my internship and residency, and they would have taken any warm body because they had to fill a slot, and so they accepted me out of desperation, and I spent 2 years there and really loved it there. And then someone there said, you should go to someplace more high powered, and showed me this opening at Penn, and so I applied, and we went to Philadelphia, drove our old VW to Philadelphia. But I was thinking, boy, these residents at Penn are so smart and, so far beyond me. And they were probably just top medical students and all of that. And I've really got to impress them with something to get them to like me. And I remember we had this class on the different psychotherapies, and there was this fellow who was a psychodynamic or psychoanalytic therapist and teaching us. And I used to take a lot of pleasure in asking questions that would make him look foolish. And I thought, man, I'm being so cool and awesome. And then one day after the seminar, I was walking across the Penn campus with one of the other residents, and he said, David, I just want to tell you that you seem like an awfully smart person, but sometimes it kind of seems like you use your mind as a weapon. And I felt so humiliated and so terrible, because it was so true what he was saying. And so I can identify with you, so strongly, and just feel so much admiration for you.
And you're right. I have been doing it from a very early age.
Yeah.
Using your mind as a weapon. That's a very relatable to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so anyway, were you Orly? Did you win as the positive Orly just now? Have we done that or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And can we hit you with a couple others of these?
Yeah, I'm tempted to ask to do feared fantasy. Can we?
Okay, sure. Yeah. Let's do that. In a feared fantasy, we go into an Alice-in-Wonderland Nightmare World, where your worst fear comes true. And in this world, if you think people are having negative thoughts about you, they really are. And furthermore, they don't hide them; they get right up in your face and verbalize them. So tell us who we might be in the feared fantasy. Who are the feared fantasy people, and what are you afraid they're thinking of you? Maybe they're people that have rejected you or something.
Yeah. So you would be a group of people, friends, that I met when my daughter was 1 year old at daycare. And my daughter and their kids are now 33, so that's been many years. They're all Israeli Americans. And at a certain point, we kind of became an extended family because the kids grew up, and now some of them are married and have their own kids. And we sort of started to get together every Friday night for Shabbat dinner. And
that's an old Swedish custom, I think.
I think so. And to do certain things together, certain social things. And there was a pretty, how would I say, grand rejection situation about a year into the pandemic, where in the pandemic we couldn't get together anymore. So we did some Zoom dinners, but then we also did some, how would you say, 4x4 driving, like into remote places and camping out and stuff like that. And at a certain point, for one reason or another, there was a trip that they decided to not invite me to. I am the only one that is a single there. Everybody else is a couple. And there were on and off certain incidents of personal rejection by individual. But that was kind of like a time where everybody, it was done on a group level. So since then, I am invited to certain functions. I am not invited to others. So that rejection repeated itself. Yeah, I definitely, I do feel a part of the group. I'm invited to Shabbat dinners. I invite people over to me, to my house, but I don't feel that people are extremely interested in me or like me very much.
And Orly, what if we were these group of friends from these, 32 years friends for you, but the friends from hell? What would we be thinking about you? What are you afraid they're thinking about you?
That somehow they're not interested in me as a person. They don't think that I'm contributing anything to the group. That I I just create uncomfortableness.
Is that because you're unlikable and that you're kind of critical and harsh?
Maybe, yes. And also because I'm by myself. So if we drive Jeeps, I drive by myself and it may become a liability on others.
Because you're single?
Yeah. And also sometimes they need to help me if,
Okay.
And also it's kind of like, in general, it's a liability. Maybe I'm not funny enough. Maybe I'm not, I don't know. I'm not fun enough.
Okay.
Maybe I'm too intellectual. Maybe I'm too political.
Okay.
That's
okay. So I've
like
got, I've got a list here that we're not interested in you. You don't create anything interesting. You're by yourself. You're not funny enough. You're not fun enough. You're too intellectual. You're too political. Is that a pretty good list?
Yeah, and you are a liability.
Oh yeah, you're a liability. And so now this is not practice for a real encounter, although it could carry over and be helpful too to have a way to get close to these people again. But we're the group from hell, and we're really going to say these things to you, Orly, and so you're going to meet the monster you fear the most, and let's see what happens.
Right. And so the goal here is definitely not that we're trying to practice what happens if you go to your next Shabbat dinner and all these people rip into you. This is not practice for real life, but rather really kind of an exposure technique. We're saying, Orly, you're so afraid that people in this group are going to judge you, look down on you, be disinterested in you, find you unlikable. And so we're going to kind of bring you into this world where what you're most afraid of actually happens, right? And have you respond. And quite oftentimes people will struggle to respond, and then we would be very happy to offer you a role reversal, and we can kind of practice how to respond to this kind of a scenario.
Okay.
You want to start, David?
Okay, sure. Could I talk to you for a minute, Orly?
Yes.
You know how you've always been afraid that we're not really interested in you?
Yes.
Well, I just wanted to tell you that we aren't. I'm not interested in you.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Makes me really sad. We have a lot of history together, and with ups and downs, and I did my best to bring to the relationship whatever I could. I think that I agree that at times I behaved in ways that were less than desirable. I tried sometimes to take responsibility. Maybe in the past I didn't know any better. But in the last few years, I definitely try to take responsibility, and it just makes me sad. There's nothing that I can do about it. Whether I'll cook more for dinners, or whether I would read more books or sit there and shut up, I really realize that it's a choice, and I will have to accept it. Makes me really, really sad. And that's all.
Okay, who would you say won that exchange?
I think I did.
Big or small?
Big.
Big or huge?
Maybe not quite huge. Pretty big, but
Yeah, I thought so too. And that's great. And let's see if we can get to huge. And just to give you some critique, I thought you did a lot of nice disarming. You didn't do any stroking. You did a lot of I feel statements. You didn't use any inquiry. Let's do a role reversal and model some of that. And we can do the same thing we did before. This time, you can be the friend from hell. And Jill, would you be willing to be the positive Orly?
Wait.
I would love to.
Huh?
Can you give me another chance?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Want Jill or David to attack you?
Because I didn't think about the 5 secrets, and I want to test what.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
So,
well, what I was trying to tell you, Orly, and I thought you were so intelligent, so political, but you seem to be kind of not that bright, to tell you the truth. And what I was trying to tell you is that I'm not interested in you. You're not interesting enough for me. So there.
Yeah. It makes me feel really sad, and I somewhat feel ashamed that I was so insensitive to see what would be interesting for when we get together, to bring up stuff that would be interesting. You have been my friend for many years. We met when the kids were little. We have gone through a lot together. So there are a lot of memories, and kind of raising the kids together. I can imagine that right now you are really kind of fed up with me, and sort of don't feel kind of angry that I didn't read the map the way I should have, and you just don't feel like. Can imagine that you don't feel like putting any more energy into it. I agree that that sometimes we come to a point where relationships are over. You have been a good friend at times, definitely in the sense of a substitute extended family, which was very important and appreciated by me, and it's something that I would forever cherish. And you've been and you have the right to take care of yourself. I understand that, and I have to deal with it. I accept that I have to deal with it.
Okay, who won that one?
I did a little better than before, but not quite huge.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe big
right.
plus.
Yeah, that's right. Big plus. Let's do a role reversal and see if we can get to huge. And what if you're willing to jump onto the saddle of the bucking bronco here, Jill? We'll see if we can model how to get to huge.
Absolutely. So yeah, is it Orly or David? One of you are going to be the friends from hell, and then I'll be Orly. Yeah.
You want to be David, Orly, or you want David to be Orly?
Yeah, David will be the friend from hell.
I'm the friend from hell, and Jill will be the positive Orly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, could I talk to you for a minute, Orly?
Sure. Yeah,
I just wanted to tell you that. Let me see. I can't remember what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm just not interested in you. You're not interesting enough for me. I only really like the super interesting people. and you're not interesting.
Yeah, well, it feels sad to hear that. And at the same time, I'm not surprised because I have been feeling, really a lot of tension. And I've been wondering how you've been feeling about me. I'm guessing you're feeling pretty upset with me, and maybe not interesting is the nicest thing that you have to say. I'm guessing that there's a lot more behind that I've probably been pretty critical at times and harsh and difficult to be around, and maybe sometimes too intellectual or too much trying to impress you. And I can imagine that it's really been kind of off-putting. And I think I do appreciate actually that you're telling me how you feel. And I actually feel like this is an opportunity to learn a lot more and understand, how I have been kind of falling short and, not interesting and maybe lots of other not so pleasant things that you've been, holding back because you've wanted to be kind of kind to me. And so I feel sad, and I gather you feel probably pretty pissed and frustrated with me, but I'm also hoping that maybe you could share a little more with me about how I have been coming across, because I'm feeling lucky to have the chance to hear from you and maybe to think about this and maybe even to address some of the things I've fallen short on. Could you tell me more?
What grade do you give that one, Orly?
Yeah, that's huge.
And it was very similar to yours, but there was just a slight difference. Yes. And who is the inquiry about?
About you, about the other person.
Right. And why does that get too huge? Do you see? Because you were spending a lot of time saying, I'm going to have to live with this and blah, blah, blah.
Right. Because again, it's about the other person. The whole five secret is to allow the person to feel that rather than fight them, is to actually encourage that communication by not blaming. And
yourself or them.
Yes.
But you can blame yourself. That's okay. That was a beautiful part of your thing, Jill. But yes, I mean, I don't see how I could do anything but melt there. And
ironically, and maybe you'll do a role reversal, Orly, but ironically, I know what you're wanting to do is to feel, and also to feel kind of connected to yourself. And I feel like when I have no defenses up and when I'm really interested, even in something that feels incredibly painful, I feel so connected to the other person and to myself, just sort of so open and so vulnerable and even sad. I was feeling sad as I was asking for more feedback, sad at my failures, but also at the same time connected,
Yes, I agree. Yeah, it becomes, you become open, and then it's up to the other person to take it or not.
Mm-hmm. This is really amazingly interesting and powerful to me. Because so many people are lonely, and also because you're super bright, highly motivated person, and you're struggling to get this. Although you're getting it step by step, and because this, the secret of how to get close to people isn't something that you can have. Here's 3 tips in the recent our magazine, how to get close to others, and that stuff that people think that things are on that simplistic level. But this is much more subtle and sophisticated. But yes, the idea is if someone's ripping into you, find truth in what they're saying, but draw them out and let them talk, and then either a wonderful relationship will evolve or the other person will end up looking like a nut. Mm-hmm. But let's. Do you want to take another stab at that, Orly? Because then I could think of some homework for you too along these lines. So we'll have a 3-dimensional impact on you, not just here in the session, but in the world after the session, and to try these new things. But Jill, why don't you be the the negative friend from hell, and Orly, see what you can do.
Yeah, Orly, I just wanted to tell you that we are not interested in you. You don't contribute enough. You're just really not very likable.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that you are coming up with this. It must have been really hard to say that, because I do feel the tension, and I do feel the words that have not been said for a long time. And, we've been friends for many years, and we do have history, and a lot have happened, which on one hand is important, but on the other hand, I understand that at times I just alienated you, and I can imagine how it feels exhausting and kind of not interested, and feeling that you came to the end of it, maybe even annoying and irritating. How many times do you have to deal with it? And I feel so sad and devastated, because my utmost desire was to be friends forever. But I also hear what you're saying, and I wonder if this is a good time to talk more, if it's a good time to say more and to see if there's anything else that I can do. I definitely would like to take as much responsibility as I can, and I would like to not miss this opportunity. You've been, I definitely know that you've done so much for me, and we had.
Can I stop you for a second, Orly?
Yes.
See, you're talking about what you're going to do now. So it's back on Orly performing to make people like her. Let me see, you were super up to that point, and let me suggest a slightly different thing. Yeah, like well, my goal was to be friends forever, but I'm wondering if you'd be willing to tell me about some of the things that I've done or said recently or over the years that have pissed you off and turned you off. I've been pretty defensive in the past, and now I'm ready to listen.
Okay, I'll just repeat what you said because it's beautiful and it's true.
Okay, you can repeat it or put your own twist on it.
Yeah, I've been defensive in the past, and I feel really open right now, and I'm willing to listen to anything you want to say.
I'm eager to listen.
I'm eager to listen, and I hope that you're willing to do that.
But tell him what you're willing to, what you want him to do. I want you to tell me about.
I want you to tell me about this time that I alienated you, and I want to know about these times that I created an environment of criticism and harshness, and times that I was not fun and a liability.
And what this has been like for you.
And it just makes me so sad that.
But tell him and tell me what it's been like for you having to be around this irritating Orly.
Okay. And what it's been like for you to deal with it all these years, and to tolerate that, and to just have it around without maybe at time not taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
And you want to ask who won that then? Was that you or the critical? I can't remember if it was me or David. Who was the critical person, but you or the critical guy? Orly.
Who was the critical?
No. I said who won?
How did you do?
Oh, who won? Yeah, I won, and now it's pretty huge because of the assistant from David. Yeah.
Well, what was it? What was it that David, remind us then? What is it that David was saying?
The inquiry, the shift of the attention to the other person and to acknowledge how they feel and what, and just to open up to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the diametric opposite of your philosophy of having to earn love. You see, right. And all you have to give is your screwed upness, and you're owning up to that, and being willing to listen to how the other person is feeling. It's a completely opposite theory of friendship and intimacy.
I agree.
And Orly, I don't know if you know, but the very first one you did, so now we've done many iterations. I was taking notes on each of them. The very first one, you actually even fell into the trap where you said, maybe I should have cooked more, or I should have read more.
Correct.
You know, I mean,
the thing to say is, give me another chance. I'll cook even more food every Friday.
Right.
Well, my tap dance shoes. I'll show you how smart I am. Show you how, you know what I mean? It was the same trap, right? It's the same trap that got you.
No,
here.
I was saying, I said that, but in a different context, with a context of being defeated, that I know that this is not going to work out.
I see. Like, I can't cook more. I can't read more. There's nothing more I could do. Right. Yeah. But it's, yes.
But again, I was looking for something to do.
Right. See,
it's not about doing, it's about being, as you said, and it's about listening. And really, actually, I had this thought when you said, I'm not very interesting. I was wondering, well, are you interested? Like, you have to be, we talk about this, right? Interesting versus interested. And what we really want in these situations is just to be interested in the other person, right? To be curious about the other person rather than it being about you being amazing or really anything.
And all you have to offer is your effed upness. I won't say that because I don't want to be censured. That's all you have to offer, and your interest in the other person. So it's you have zero to offer, and that's kind of a Buddhist thing. I don't know if it's in the Jewish religion. But I think it might on some level be at the core of a lot of religions, but it's like, I don't know what words to put it in, but where warmth comes is just from being with each other's shittiness, and kind of accepting it. And that's where the beauty comes. I'm just sounding like an old fart, but either Orly or Jill will explain it elegantly.
No, it's 100% true. I used to say, like, when my kids were really young and maybe preschool and kindergarten, the people I really liked hanging out with at drop off were the ones that were like, oh my God, the morning I had, like, I barely made it out the door, and, who were just open and vulnerable, not the ones who like acted like they had it all together and everybody had the perfect lunch and the perfect outfit. It's like, who do you want to hang out with? The people who can be open and vulnerable and interested in you and wanting to be real.
Yeah. And that's actually what I said to Rima, is that at a certain point, it made me feel I still vacillate with guilt feelings about my daughter as she does. But part of me is also very proud to be the mother that I have been.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I don't know if, I know that I can offer her something that not everybody can, But
you're offering us something tonight that no one else can offer.
Well, that's that's an extreme one.
No, that's just is that extreme, Jill?
No. I think the push pull almost is that. I think, David, you once said this. It's like when we don't want to be putting you on a pedestal, Orly, right? Like
Right.
as soon as you feel like you're being put on a pedestal, you got to pull yourself right back down and remember that you've got flaws. But what we're saying is we just love you. You've given us such a gift because of your flaws, right? Not in spite of your flaws, right?
Yeah.
It's such a gift just to be able to be with you, being open and vulnerable and flawed.
Yeah, you haven't given us anything worthwhile tonight, and that's why we love you.
But you gave me something worthwhile.
Yeah, right. I would have. I want to see how your feelings are now. We're probably about at the end of our time for this edition of the Enlightenment of Orly, and it's been so rewarding. But I'd like to see how you're feeling now, just using the daily mood log ratings that you had here. And then I think for homework would be to listen or watch this video, because I think it'll be a lot to take in. And then perhaps to try some of these new strategies with other people. Just start offering people less than zero. And in other words, just start opening up and being vulnerable and encouraging people to criticize you and see what impact this might have on your relationships. And then we'll get some follow up from you, and in maybe a week or 10 days or something, and see what you're thinking.
I was going to say, and then we'll get your ratings, Orly, but also, David, we sometimes talk about, the sort of the inner solution and the outer solution. And I'm sort of on an inner level, what we're working on here is really acceptance.
Yeah.
And that's self-acceptance, really. Like we didn't really say anything that was along the lines of self-defense today. And then the outer solution, which kind of came out in the feared fantasy, was this, what we call disarming, right? Seeing truth in what the other person is saying, even when it feels really painful. And we combine that with inquiry, because that's almost like deepening the disarming. Yes, I see what you're saying, and tell me even more about how I've been letting you down. And so homework wise too, I'm just thinking those are the themes for you to keep in mind. Like when I'm, upset with myself, accepting it, not trying to defend against it. And when I feel like I'm letting other people down, seeing the truth in that criticism and inviting it and asking more and being curious. Does that make sense?
You're kind of freezing up there a little bit, Jill.
And I think that also the tension between the inner solution and the outer solution really offer the balance that I was talking about from the beginning, with the full intensity of feelings.
Orly, did you do the percent after on the daily mood log?
Okay, so
just write them down now.
Yeah, so I put 0% for sadness and 5% for anxiety and 0% for shame and 0% for the worthlessness, inadequacy, etc. 10% loneliness. But I think I'm good with that.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, we want 10% loneliness.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I feel about it. Yes. And self-consciousness, I'm 5 right now. In terms of hopelessness, it's 5. 0 on the stuck, defeated. 0 on the resentful. And 0 on disappointed of myself.
So these were all very dramatic changes, and I have just two questions for you. For example, things were going from 100 to 0, from 90 to 0, from 100 to 5, from 80 to 5, and so this looks like a miracle cure or something. And if someone, when I was in psychiatric residence, had told me that it's possible to get changes like this in a single therapy session, I would have said you're a fraud or a con artist, and I think a lot of people think I am. But I'm not. However, I have been taking fraud lessons, so I'm trying to build myself up to that level. But at any rate, are these ratings real? Are you really feeling that way right now? And then,
no,
secondly,
I do.
Yeah.
But we need to acknowledge that I am a work in progress. I really work so hard because it's so rewarding to me, especially in the last month and a half.
Oh, it's been an amazing month and a half for you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I really, I became a little addicted to think and live team because it's so rewarding. So, so it's not that it's true that one can think that this is a total bipolar episode or something, but I feel very good about it because it is a work in progress. And, because I like hiking, I always think about it as I need to know where the trail is going to. And I think that today I definitely got reoriented with the trail, and isn't that synonym to hope?
Oh yeah, direction. Absolutely. This was inner hiking today. We went,
it was
into one of those Grand Canyons of I think. But my second question was, and if anyone is watching this episode, they would want to know that if those dramatic changes were real, if that's really possible for people, what was the effective ingredient? Because we did a lot of different things. And you may not know, you may have to watch the video and then see, when you're reflecting on it, and you may have an answer then. But can you say what were the things that were most helpful to you? Because we did empathy, we did externalization of voices, we did feared fantasy, we did just a whole lot of things.
There's no question that the empathy really helped. Because, it was a reaffirmation of the trust that I have in you. We do have a relationship for a while now. So I didn't need the whole thing, but the empathy and the discussion about, do you really get me, or do I still need to tell you what else? You allowing me to be a part of that. Not assuming that you know what I need, but being open to that, and then using your own experience, of course. The other component was really, for me, was the reminder of my tools. So the whole issue of reaffirming the disarming and the inquiry, we created a whole new dimension of using that, which obviously I still did not connect it. I was so into taking responsibility and accepting that I kind of forgot that part of accepting is leaving space for the other person. Because
right.
That's
beautiful.
Right.
What is? Thank you. Or maybe you weren't done. I was gonna. When you're done, I want to get Jill's overview too.
Yeah, sure.
I think there were a lot of things, but I also thought that there was a real common thread that worked its way through the session. It was, Orly accepting herself using the acceptance paradox when we did the externalization of voices. There was the survey technique with Jill and David, where you discover that we truly love hearing about your flaws, and that we feel closer to you knowing that you're a work in progress, and that you can sometimes be unlikable and harsh and critical, and be open about it and be humble about it. And then the feared fantasy, where we're discovering that being really interested in how the other person is feeling and how you're making them feel, and what they have to say, and being open to learning from someone else's experience of you rather than intimidated by it, learning that it's relationships are about vulnerability and openness, not about impressing the other person. So there was a lot, but I did feel it actually kind of had this thread that sort of wove its way through the session.
And one last point that I'd want to make is that often therapists are looking for something simple that they can learn. Like if someone has anxiety, you can learn how to do exposure therapy, and it takes about 15 minutes to learn how to do it. And then you just do it if you're courageous. But what we're doing is going on a journey at every therapy session, and each journey will be different. And we started out thinking that a lot of pain came up watching the news, the same as with Mark. And the war, there's horrible traumas going on. But then when we followed that energy of where you were, we ended up in a very different place, a beautiful place. And that has to do with going where the patient leads you, if you're a therapist, and hopefully not trying to put patients into diagnostic categories and then putting them into some kind of peg of this type of therapeutic technique, and then we'll do that, and as opposed to really hearing what's going on with the patient, looking at their negative thoughts. I don't know quite what I'm trying to say, but I think it is important if anyone could say it intelligently right now.
I think that for me, what I heard that you say is that the acknowledgement of one's journey and the search for the specific ways to connect to oneself and others is what brings the most healing. And each person have different needs. Not everybody has the same needs, and for me, as you know me, David, the inner journey is very important. And I needed to find balance between the two, because I definitely don't want to just be, my goal is not to move to Rishikesh and meditate for the rest of my life. So I want to be between the inner journey and the outside journey.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah.
And, this is like a Star of David. If you push one triangle up, it's closer to the heaven, but the earth is being detached from it. And if you push it it's too earthy. So I needed the balance. And I did. I learned something. I learned how to balance, and I learned how to be more open to other people, which I think that it's something that I needed to learn.
Yeah, and I think, David, what you were just commenting on is also really just about the specificity of really, in some ways, the cognitive model. I mean, first you're saying we need to individualize therapy for each person, which is 100% true. And then I just think, even though I think we were maybe a little lost in the beginning, we weren't 100% sure where we would go, but clarity comes just from saying, what are the thoughts that are driving these feelings? And once we got those thoughts, we got into working on accepting Orly and working on those thoughts. And the same thing with the feared fantasy. We didn't just hurl insults at Orly. We said, what are you afraid other people would be thinking about you? And her treatment came from her specific thoughts and from her specific fears, right? And that's what led us to figure out kind of how to help her.
Well, thank you both. And you've given me so much this afternoon, so much this evening, given me a lot of joy, and you've been so courageous, and I just thank you.
Thank you, David.
Okay. All right.
But
okay, so
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Gosh, David, that was an amazing experience listening to you and Jill work with Orly. And we're really lucky now that we're concluding this episode with Jill and Orly joining us to talk about what their experience was like. And let me just take a moment. Jill's been on the podcast before, and she needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce her anyway. She co-teaches the Tuesday group with you, and then she's the director of training for the Feeling Good Institute. And she's just like an amazing human being and an incredible role model and teacher. And I'm so honored to get to work with you on Tuesdays, Jill, and you're amazing.
Thank you. That's such a kind introduction. I love working with you too.
Thank you. And we also have the person who did the personal work with you, Orly Marmur, and Orly is a clinical psychologist in Southern California. And if this really attracts you to work with Orly, Orly's contact information will be included in the show notes. So let me turn it over to you guys. And David, take it away.
Okay, I've taken it. Orly, let's start with you, Orly. It was you brought so much courage and warmth and emotion and vulnerability to the session, and it was a lot of adventures that we went on together. Can you tell us what in retrospect now how you're doing now, and when you think back on the session, what comes to mind, and what were the most powerful parts of it, or anything really that you want to say? It was a gift that you gave us all.
In looking back, I think that I already started the journey earlier this year. We worked together about different aspects of my life, but at the time I think it was back in March or April of this year, there was some kind of a new discovery that Jill came up with in the essence of emotophobia, that it's really hard for me to feel my feelings. And I started to contemplate that and kind of realized that how true is it for me, how I conditioned myself all my life to do and to accomplish, and in a way, just never allowed myself to sit there and feel my feelings, which also, as we know, affected me because of my eating disorder. When the war started, and that was a couple of months ago, I really didn't think that anything that has anything to do with me, and actually I felt very guilty that I'm kind of feeling all kind of flashbacks and kind of weird feelings. It's all started when I was in group with David, and I was shocked to find out that I didn't even hear what was said in the group. And David asked what's going on, and we started talking about that. So I noticed that somehow I experience feelings of post-trauma. There were a lot of guilt and shame. And then I also felt that I don't do enough, I need to do. Anyway, that evolved to a lot of work that I did, and which kind of ended the way it started. It really didn't have to do with the war. It has to do with me and my own exploration. And as usual, I was definitely taking the kind offer that David offered to work with me. And Jill also agreed to join, which I really appreciate. And whatever came together was kind of very awesome, because it was kind of like a quiet result. and very peaceful for me. That has to do with, like we mentioned in the session, has to do with the acceptance on the level of whatever we call the inner journey, where I accept myself, but also the need for the outer journey, the connection to others, and how to do that in a way that that is genuine and feel very meaningful, and allow me to be who I am. So since then, I just feel really good. I feel very peaceful, and I kind of was able to drop that need to do something, and even in regards to certain instances that were mentioned in the session in terms of friendship, things really changed. I don't feel so needy. I don't feel so devastated. I allow people, I think that I, even learn the inquiry and the disarming in a personal way rather than working with it with patients and stuff, really allowed me to connect with people in a deeper way. And I think that, again, it's a work in progress. I didn't, some of it has to realize with the fact that not every person is interested in such deep and meaningful exchanges. Some people are friends in a different way. So I learned a lot about myself. I think that the feared fantasy made a huge difference. I'm glad I insisted that we will do that, because I never thought that I'm afraid to feel my feelings. I thought of myself as a courageous person, but I was so scared. And it kind of feel that something happened, something changed again in a very subtle direction.
Yeah, Orly, I loved working with you, as I always do, and I have had some opportunities to work with you in the past. And what I remember standing out too in this session, although we did talk about a variety of different things, was the feared fantasy, and the theme that I think came out for you, but I just think is so universal, is this idea that we don't need to be impressive and we don't need to collect accomplishments and do a million different things for people to like us. And in fact, we need to be more kind of the opposite, like interested in the other person. And if someone were to be really harsh or really critical of us, we could just ask questions and be curious and try to learn and kind of turn it into, as you said, like inquiry, disarming, right? And it's not really that scary when that happens. And then to your point, if they're not really someone who's that interested in being close to us, that's okay. Not everybody is going to be my cup of tea, and I'm not going to be great for everybody. The world has all kinds of people, right? And everyone's not going to be the perfect fit. And if we can kind of let go of that and not feel, as you said, so needy or demanding, or kind of feel like your feelings about yourself are going to depend on every interaction going well, right? So I just thought it was really wonderful to see you letting go of that need to be impressive. And then, of course, you become so much more impressive just as a human being, and so much easier to relate to, and so much more likable in a way, too.
So there's so many things come in paradoxes. So you're saying that letting go of the need to be impressive and need to be liked makes you impressive and likable.
It seems that way.
At least I impressed myself with the letting go of needing to be impressed.
This is maybe for the team therapists. David has been coaching me, and I haven't done well with the coaching about how not to cheerlead. And what I really loved in the first half of the work that you did with Orly is you gave her such beautiful empathy, and it's listening to it. It was so, like, I'm putting this in quotes, simple. But you really focused on thought empathy, where you just repeated back what she said, and feeling empathy, where you acknowledged her feelings without doing a lot of rah and yeah, go keep your doing, you're doing great. And what struck me was at the end of the second session, you asked Orly what impacted her, and Orly, you said it was the deep empathy was one thing, wasn't all of it. And when I listened to you say that, Orly, I thought it was so simple and not like fluffy or flowery or over that top, which sometimes I do. Could you say something about that, Jill? Because you're so great at that.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know what I have to say. Nothing very impressive, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, I think that I was thinking it's about being sort of like light-handed versus heavy-handed or something, understated in your connection. But essentially, I feel like it's just being a really good listener and repeating back, what Orly was saying and really trying to understand the feelings behind it. Mm-hmm. And you're right, not feeling the need to cheer someone up, right? I feel like the deepest form of empathy is just really meeting someone where they're at. And so if they're feeling crappy about themselves or down about something, it's really, really understanding how painful it is and how much they're suffering, right? Rather than trying to help them to feel better about themselves.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I used to call that, and still do, and we'll call it that right now. Are you ready?
The zero technique.
I used to call it call it the zero technique, because great empathy, you give the patient zero. You give them nothing. You zero in on what the other person is thinking and feeling with great curiosity and try to understand where that's coming from. And that's, you're giving them nothing. You're not impressing them. You're not cheerleading them. You're not making interpretations. So you're not giving them advice. It's just being with another person. And as you say, Ron, it's a very humble, simple thing that amounts to literally nothing. But sometimes it's the greatest gift you can give another person. And this is perhaps of importance.
Well,
I
really think that the main thing is that you are not helping.
Yeah, right. You're not
jump to help all the time.
Yeah, because when you try to help someone, you imply they're broken. It's kind of a negative message. But this is a message for therapists who are trying to learn empathy. Now, is that beginners or advanced therapists? Well, it's pretty much all therapists screw up in this way. But also for mothers and fathers who were...
I was going to say, it's kind of all human beings, actually. Yeah. It's actually harder, by the way. I share this openly, but it's much harder for me to do this with my kids than with my patients or with other people in the world, just because I want so badly for them to feel better. So if they're struggling, it's so hard for me to just empathize and not do any kind of problem solving.
Mm-hmm. It is really hard.
Yeah.
So that's also another message of secret of how to get close to people, how to find friends in the world, not only to be vulnerable about your own self and instead of trying to impress people, but also, as you say, Jill, it's to be interested in others and ask them about themselves and be genuinely interested in them and disarm them, find truth in what they're saying, use stroking. And this works in kindergarten, works in fourth grade, it works in seventh grade, it works in high school. Yeah. It works all the way through. And it's such a great thing to discover, particularly if you're feeling lonely or insecure. That would be some of the simple, beautiful messages that we have to share with all of you who are listening. Thanks to you, Orly, and your wonderful warmth and openness and courage. And thanks to you, Jill and Rhonda, for editing this and listening to it and producing it for everyone. I know everyone is laughing. I'm probably sounding overly inventive again. But anyway, so that's such a thing that kids struggle with. Everyone, how do I get people to like me and admire me and love me and want to be around me, and that's the secret. That's how you do it.
Coolio. The other really great thing was the feared fantasy. And the point that you made at the end, Jill, was that you used Orly's words in that technique. You didn't just throw random insults at her. And I'm wondering, Orly, if you remember that part of the personal work that you all did together?
Yeah, like, what are you afraid that people would be thinking about you, but not saying? And that's what you want to get that list before you do the feared fantasy, so it'll have real power and bite to it. And just to remind you of your list, Orly, you were afraid that people would be thinking this about you. We're not interested in you. You're just by yourself. You're not funny enough. You're not fun enough. You're too intellectual. You're too political. You're a liability. And then how did you defeat those stinging accusations when we verbalized them, Orly?
Yeah. These are things that were told to me in the past. I mean, I didn't make it up. Some of them I probably assumed that are told to me, but a lot of them.
But how did you, Orly, in the feared fantasy, do you remember how you ended up sort of like winning, so to speak? Do you remember what your kind of, what worked for you?
I learned it was a little bit of a struggle, but I definitely learned the inquiry. That was the main thing. There was also the disarming was very important here, but the inquiry was about, can you tell me more? Is it a good time to talk about it? I really want to hear more about how, whatever I did, how did you feel? What happened to you? Whatever that has to do with the other person and their feelings, thoughts. So.
And you become completely vulnerable in that moment. And I've often said that when you become completely vulnerable, as you were, you become invulnerable.
Yeah.
It's another paradox.
Yeah, I definitely struggled with it because I learned from team, I learned to take responsibility. And that really helped me previously.
But when you assume accountability, you become innocent.
I don't hear you.
When you assume accountability and responsibility, when you take responsibility and accept your errors, you become suddenly innocent.
Yeah, so I've done it a lot and it really worked. But on the other hand, I kind of neglected to leave enough space for the other person.
Yes,
I take responsibility, but at the same time, so that's the disarming when you agree, but at the same time, I had to leave more space. And I think that's what I learned, the true application of the inquiry.
And to me, what you illustrated and experienced was one of the four great deaths of the South. It's one of the four forms of enlightenment. And it was so beautiful to watch you doing that. And I'm so glad we can share it with all of our listeners.
Yeah. Yeah, and the fear fantasy was very, very impactful and meaningful.
Yeah, that was clear.
Well, shall we call it a day?
We should.
And we wish everyone a happy New Year, but that happened several weeks ago. We're recording this the week before New Year, but happy holidays and happy 2024 to all of our wonderful listeners.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.